Is that part clear, or you have any doubts on any points?
No, ma'am, I don't have any doubts.
All right. Okay, so you also shared that study
It's
material,
clear.
right? That was shared from your college, I guess. KLE study material for Specific Relief Act. Yesterday you shared that as well, right? I guess there is some issue with your network. Your video is lagging.
Hello?
Yeah, hi. I
Yeah.
think some issues with your network today.
Yes, yes, yes. So I will keep my video off.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Um,
All
yeah.
right. Yeah, so yesterday I think you also shared the study material, right? That was shared by your college, KLE study material for contracts. Okay. Yeah, so
Yes.
that's also a good source that you can consider to prepare
Huh.
for exams. Yeah. Okay, and also I saw the previous year question papers, all right?
Yes.
Yeah, now what happened? I think previously entire specific relief act was part of the syllabus, but now you have just a few sections. So I saw in like previous year question papers, 2001, not 2001, like like the previous ones. What happens is
Yeah,
that they
10
have,
months back.
yeah, 10 years back, right, when it was 100 marks question paper. So that time,
Huh.
like, yeah, there were questions from other provisions also, but now those provisions are no more important, so you can just
Yeah.
consider ones which are mentioned in the syllabus.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And also one good thing is that they are, like mentioning that, okay, fine, from, like 5 units are there. From unit 1, these are the two questions, answer any one. Unit 2,
Yes, yes, yes.
it's very
Hmm.
clear. Yeah, in our time what used to happen is that half of the time, like 2 3 questions will be out of syllabus. Some questions will
Oh.
be from yeah, like out of syllabus questions would come, so that
Huh,
would
huh.
be very difficult. And also, like maybe from unit 1 question might come, the last question might be from unit 1, so we had to guess which question is from which unit and then accordingly
Huh,
answer.
huh.
Yeah, so considering that it's a very organized, like question paper and materials are also very organized, as I can see.
Yeah, yeah.
So here are few questions, okay, which are relevant considering the present syllabus.
Okay.
Okay, so as I told you yesterday, right, that you just have subjective type questions, right? What is the minimum and maximum marks? 5 and 16, or what is it?
Means I
Like the like for short questions, I think previously it used to be 5 marks for each,
no,
right?
no. For long questions it is 10 marks and for problems it is 6 marks.
Okay, so maximum marks is 10, minimum is 6, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so one thing what you can do is whatever topic you are preparing, right, you can prepare for 10 marks. Okay,
Huh.
consider that even if this question is coming for 10 marks, you should be in a position to answer it properly, right? So accordingly, that much you prepare, because maximum
Hmm.
marks is 10 for every single thing, whatever you are reading. Keep in mind 10 marks, okay? Prepare for 10 marks
Yes.
and accordingly you can proceed. Okay, so next thing is that yesterday I told you that you can have one, like a one basic introduction that will fit any question whatever you are answering. So this
Yeah.
you can consider as a basic, like introduction. You can write it for any question, no matter what question
Yes,
you
yes.
are asking. Okay, so
Huh,
if there
huh.
are
Hmm.
two questions from specific relief act, maybe you can divide this introduction and write
Hmm.
half of it in one question, half in the other question, right? So that way you can
Yes.
cover this, and also you will let the examiner know that you have this much of knowledge. Okay, so
Yes.
what I have included, you can obviously, like include your own words, write it in your own way. So what I have basically included is that Specific Relief Act 1963 is what? It's an act of Parliament of India that provides for specific relief for enforcement of individual civil rights and not for the mere purpose of enforcing a penal law. Now, what do you understand by this thing? Individual civil rights or, like enforcing a penal law?
It is for individual right that when his civil right is being violated, then he can uh, go in the court and sue the other party.
Yeah.
For that it is, and it is not for bringing the penal law.
Not
Like
for
I can't be
punishing the
clear more.
person. Not for punishing the person, not to send him
Okay.
behind bars or anything like that. We don't want to do those things, but main purpose is that whoever civil right is being violated, we want to enforce it, right? If I'm making a promise to you that I will be performing some sort of a contract, I am not doing that, your civil right is being violated. So this act will come into
Yes.
picture just to ensure you enjoy your rights, but not to punish me or to send me behind bars or anything like that, right? So this is the main purpose. Okay, so you can consider writing this as well. Then you can mention
Yes.
that it replaced an earlier act of 1877. The main aim of this act was to assure that whenever there is a wrong, there must be a remedy. However, this, like this act is like judicial discretionary remedy. So this also is very important. However, specific relief is a judicial discretionary remedy. So what do you understand by judicial discretionary remedy?
Mm, don't know the meaning of discretionary.
Discretionary means at your wish. So if they are saying judicial discretionary, that means at the will of judiciary. It's not like compulsory on their part. It depends on their, like decision, their reasoning and things like that. If I say it's your discretionary power, that means you can take a decision. It's not mandatory on you. It's your discretion to decide whether you want to study law or not to study law. That is discretion. You have the sole authority to decide something.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I say remedy, remedy means the kind of relief that is being given, right? So it is what?
Yes.
Specific relief is what? Judicial discretionary remedy. That means it's
Indeed.
not compulsory on the courts, right? If a person is accused of committing theft, obviously if he is proven guilty, court will have to give him the punishment, right? That is being mentioned. Maximum 3 years of imprisonment. Court cannot say that no, even though the person is being proven guilty, I don't want to punish him. Court cannot do that, right? It's a compulsion
Yes.
on the court that they will have to punish if he is
Mm,
proven guilty, right? Beyond doubts.
yes.
But in this case, what happens? It's judicial discretionary. That means it's not binding on courts that if I am going to the court asking for specific relief or like specific performance of contract. It's not binding on courts that court should provide me that. It depends on court, right? It's court's discretion. If court feels that it's justified, court may give. If court feels that it's not justified, court will not give. Basically,
Mm,
court, yeah, court is having the like the complete authority that it can
authority.
decide. Yeah, so depending on the situation, court will decide which of these different types of reliefs that we have is best suited for this present case and whether to provide it or to, like just leave the party with simple compensation or whatever other provisions we have. So this is what is judicial discretionary remedy, and it's very important for you to know this, okay?
Yes.
Whatever type of remedy relief is being mentioned under Specific Relief Act, right? Whether it's included in your syllabus or not, all of these remedies are judicial discretionary. Okay. None of
Yes.
these remedies are binding on the courts. Court has the authority to decide whether to grant this or not to grant this. This is what is judicial discretionary remedy.
Okay.
You will even get a question regarding this. So try to remember this. It's all the remedies are judicial discretionary remedy. The act is applicable to whole of India, including the union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, like I told you yesterday, right? So
Yes.
this is also
Yes.
something that you can consider writing in the introduction part of any answer. So this will just give, like reflect that you know something about this act, right? Beyond what is mentioned in your
Yes.
study material, because your study material is based on the previous things, right? It's not updated. So they have mentioned it's applicable to whole of India, excluding the state of Jammu and Kashmir. That means it was prepared before 2019 and they have not updated it. So maybe you can consider writing this as well in your answer, okay?
Yes.
Next, you can mention earlier it was applicable to the state. Okay, earlier when it was a state, Jammu and Kashmir, when it was a state, it was not applicable to Jammu and Kashmir, and it was governed by their own specific relief act, that is known as Specific Relief Act of 1977. Yes.
Yeah.
But what happened? Fifth schedule of Jammu. Even if you don't remember the schedule, that's completely fine. You can just write the name of the act. That is Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act of 2019, which made this Specific Relief Act applicable, along with other legislations. A total number of 106 legislations were made applicable to Jammu and Kashmir after 370 was removed. So now it is applicable to Jammu and Kashmir as well, right? Union territories of Jammu and Kashmir as well as Ladakh. So this thing you can, like even if you are not writing this entire thing in one question, you can just divide it amongst two questions and write accordingly. Next is the Specific Relief Act makes provision for both specific reliefs as well as for preventive relief, right? What we saw yesterday. So for preventive reliefs, you have injunction, but for specific relief, you only need to study about specific performance of contract. But if you can remember the other types of remedies that are available as well. And you can mention that, okay, these are the different types of specific reliefs that are mentioned under the legislation. And also there is preventive relief in the form of injunction that parties can opt for, right? And you can also mention that this act was enacted on 13 December 1963 and it came into force on 1st of March 1964. So I have just included these things which are important. And if you write these things in your introduction part, right, examiner, it will give a good impression in front of the examiner, right, that you know something about the act beyond what is mentioned in your syllabus. So accordingly, you can decide what all things you want to include, what not, and accordingly, like divide this entire introduction into two parts and write it in two of the questions that you need to answer for chapter 5 of your paper, okay?
Yes.
Yeah. So is that part clear regarding the introduction?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll see some of the questions which are being mentioned. Like, okay, so first question is only specific relief is a judicial discretionary remedy. So what is judicial discretionary remedy? If this question comes, you can mention that this part also, right? That there are these different types of reliefs mentioned under the Specific Relief Act. And for all of these reliefs, it's not like parties will go to court and they can claim for it, right? They cannot claim for it, but they can pray that I should be given this relief. But at the end, it's discretion of court, right? Court will see the matter based on its, like their principle of equity, justice, and all of that. Court will take a decision whether or not to provide that relief. So you can accordingly frame this answer based on whatever you know from the entire legislation, right? Whatever different types of reliefs are there, it's a discretionary power of the court. So just remember all the different types of reliefs, right? Recovery of possession of property, specific performance of contract, rectification of instrument, rescission, cancellation, declaratory decrees, injunction. All these are discretionary power of court. Nothing can be claimed as a right by the parties. Okay, so accordingly, you can just frame your answer based on that. Next question is,
declaratory decrees, what is it?
Declaratory decrees again are not part of your syllabus, so I have just mentioned the names that you can remember. Declaratory decree basically means Decree is like an order of the court. Okay, so when the case is decided finally, right, court will pass some order or judgment, right? Then court will declare something. So what the court will declare, basically they will declare that, okay, fine, what court can declare. So if, take for example, being a student of KLE, you are entitled to some sort of a scholarship or some kind of a benefit. Okay, you are coming to them that I am a student of KLE, I am entitled to this particular scholarship, but they are not accepting the fact. They are saying that no, you are not a student of KLE. Now you need to prove that you are a student of KLE. So you will go to court, ask them to declare that, okay, fine, Kranti is a student of KLE. So that particular declaration will be a declaratory decree. And you can produce that decree in front of your college or university, and they will have to abide by that. So that is basically a declaratory decree. It can declare that, okay, fine, you are from Maharashtra, or currently you are residing in Karnataka. It may declare that, okay, fine, you are daughter of so and so person, and you are residing in Maharashtra since these many years, or many things like that. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so you don't need to know in detail about all of this. Remembering the name also is enough for you, considering these are not part of your syllabus. Okay, so next is who may obtain specific performance of contract under specific relief act. This part we have already discussed, right? Section 15. Yes. Accordingly, you can frame your answer and write. Okay, there are a few more questions which like it's better that we discuss after completing the legislation, right? So we'll move to the legislation, the remaining parts, then we'll continue with this. And also in your this thing, right, study material, there are few things which you can consider, like studying for your exams. There are few things. Take for example, okay, so specific relief act, I'll just
maybe at page number 110, something around
110, is it? Princess written. Okay, so this is specific relief act. So I have just highlighted few of the things from here. Also I took some of the parts for the introduction, right? So accordingly, whatever you find relevant, you can even refer this document. It's good, like a good source only. So you can consider this also. Again, for injunction and all also, it's very clearly written. For specific performance of contract also, if you want to frame an introduction, you can take help from this material also. So you can accordingly go through this document and just pick up whatever is relevant from here, and accordingly like prepare for your exam. Preventive relief injunction.
Why do people prefer using guide?
What?
Guide. Why do people prefer using guide?
Prefer using guide. I don't think guide is a good source in any way possible, because it's just a copy paste from some online sources, some books, and it's done in so much of hurry that often you will find many mistakes in guides. So I don't prefer guides. First of all, why people prefer guides is because, see, for your case, you have downloaded last 10 years question paper, right? Question papers you have downloaded. You have this, this study material. You have downloaded the BEREC. You have some other sources that you have referred. That's a lot of effort for some people. But if they are just buying one guide, they will get all, okay, fine, this is the question, this is how you should answer. It's like, like a ready-made thing to refer. So they prefer guide, but again, like guides are not the best source that you should refer.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so accordingly, you can just see from this document also, whatever you find relevant, you can consider that. Okay. All right. So in last class, we discussed about specific performance of contract, right? Whatever sections were relevant, 9 to 16, 21, 24, that part we discussed. Now the next provision which we have is sections 36 to 42. Okay.
Okay.
So whatever we discussed yesterday, that was from part 2. So this specific relief act is divided into 3 different parts. Part 1 is the preliminary part, that is talking about scope, application and all that stuff, and that it's applicable for enforcement of individual civil rights, not for penal provisions and all of that. Part 2 is talking about specific reliefs from which you just need to study specific performance of contract. Part 3 is talking about preventive relief, and you need to study this part, okay? But what happens from this part also, few sections are being repealed. You don't need to study that anymore, but you need to study from 36 to 42. That means you need to study the entire part 3 of this legislation, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just straight away move to part 3 of the legislation. Okay, part 3 of the legislation is talking about preventive relief. Now, what is preventive relief?
Preventive.
Yeah, preventive relief.
Like preventive measures we take, so maybe that kind of.
Yeah, it's a relief that is given to a person, right? What sort of relief? It's a preventive relief. That means someone is being prevented from doing something, and that prevention is sort of a relief for the other person, right? If I am playing loud music at night and disturbing your sleep, if court orders me not to play music at night, that order of court is like a relief for you, right? You will feel like, okay, fine.
Yes.
From tomorrow, I will be able to sleep properly. So that's a relief for you. What sort of relief? That prevention which is put on me, that prevention is a relief. So this is called as preventive relief. And it's included in part 3 of the legislation. What is preventive relief? To prevent someone from doing any specific act that he is legally not authorized to do. What is legally not authorized to do?
Means law don't give him permission to do that act.
Yeah, law don't give me permission that I play loud music at night and disturb your sleep, right? So that is something that I am not having the authority to do. So it is preventing a person from doing something that I am not authorized to do. For example, someone is doing construction without following the guidelines. For example, in Karnataka, if I'm constructing something, I need to obtain a permission first of all, right? After that, there will be certain guidelines that I need to leave this much of space for, like empty space from the, like the boundary wall and stuff like that, right? So all those guidelines, whatever is being mentioned, I need to follow that, right? If I'm obtaining permission for a 3-story building, I cannot just start constructing a 5-floor building, right? So that is what I don't have the authority because I have not taken the permission. So law will put a restriction on me. Law will prevent me, or court will prevent me from continuing with that, right? So that sort of prevention is a relief for the other person. So that is what basically preventive relief means, and it's a part of part 3 of the legislation.
Okay.
So next is chapter 7 that talks about injunctions. Okay. So preventive from sections 36 you need to study. So what is section 36? Preventive relief, how granted? We know what is preventive relief. But how will preventive reliefs be granted, right? How will a person get this sort of relief? Preventive relief is granted at, again, discretion of the court. It's very important that you like if only you can remember the sections, you can try to remember few of the sections that mentions this discretion of court. So if you get a question that, okay, fine, specific relief is a discretion of court, you can even quote the sections, right? That section 36 mentions that preventive relief is at the discretion of courts, right? It's not that the person can just claim for it. So if possible, you can try to remember the sections. Otherwise also it's completely fine if you cannot. Preventive relief is granted at the discretion of court by injunction. Okay, so how court will grant? Court will grant it by way of injunction, and it is always at the discretion of court. Okay, so after injunction, they have mentioned temporary or perpetual. So these are the two different types of injunctions which we have: temporary injunction and perpetual injunction. And in fact, this is like the most common question that I saw many times. They have just mentioned, okay, write a short note on temporary injunction, perpetual injunction. So try to prepare this as well from the injunction part. Okay, so try to remember that section 36 that is talking about preventive relief, it will be granted in the form of injunction, whether temporary or perpetual, and it will be again discretion of court. I cannot just claim for it. Court will have to be satisfied that preventive relief is the best sort of relief that can be given to me. Accordingly, court will decide and give it. All right. Now, why is it that we need injunction or preventive relief for that matter? Why is it that, like compensation or specific performance of contract is not enough in some cases? Why do we need preventive relief?
Preventive relief. When someone is doing unlawful activity and we are harmed by it, so we need, in that case, preventive relief.
Yeah, we need preventive relief because giving one-time compensation is not enough, right? Because the harm or whatever I am suffering, I may continue to suffer that even at a later stage. So it's very important that court puts a restriction on that matter permanently, right? So that is why relief injunction is very important in certain cases. So injunction is needed in some cases where monetary compensation is not enough to serve justice. It's not enough that the person is just given some amount of compensation and the matter is closed, right? It's not enough in certain cases. Injunction is what? It is an order or decree by which a party to an action is required to do. All right, so this is important, required to do or refrain from doing a particular act or a thing. Injunction can be an order whereby court asks me to do something or not to do something also. Not to do something, you are clear, right? I'm playing loud music, court will ask me to stop doing that. That is not doing something. What can be an example of doing something? Court will ask me to do something.
In case you're throwing daily garbage in front of my door, then court may ask you to pick it up. Means kind of that.
That also would come under, like a restriction only. Court would not say that, okay, fine, you again go throw garbage in front of her home, then again you go pick that up, throw it in the dustbin, right? Court would not say that. So that will also be a restriction. Court will just say that simply don't throw garbage here and there, right? So that also will be a restriction. What can be an example of court asking me to do something? Take, for example, you are owner of a certain property, right? I want to buy that property from you. Okay. What I have done is that I have paid the money. You got the property transferred in my name also, right? Everything is done in paper also. In reality also, payment and everything is done in paper also. Property got transferred to my name. But you need to give possession, right? You did everything, but now you are not vacating the plot. You are still staying there only. You are not letting me in and letting me stay there. All right. In that case, what happens? It will have no meaning me buying the property, right? If I cannot even stay there. So I will go to court and produce all the documents and say that I bought this property from her. I made all the payment. Everything is clear. On paper, property got transferred to me, but now she is not vacating the plot. So court in that will ask you that you vacate this plot. That means court is asking you to do something, right? So that also is an injunction. So that is what is court asking you to do something. Court will ask you that you vacate this property and give her possession of this property. So that is doing something. Okay, is that clear? Doing and not doing?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so injunction will include both the two things. Okay, it may ask you to do something or to stop doing something or continuing something. So this is basically about section 36 that says that court will give you this and at its discretion. You cannot just ask for it as a right.
Okay.
Yeah, so now we know that there are two different types of injunctions, right? Temporary and perpetual injunction. Now, what is temporary and perpetual injunction? Again, it's very important. In most of the question papers I have seen, they asking write a short note on any of these injunctions. So what is temporary and perpetual injunction? It's mentioned under section 36. Perpetual means permanent, right? Temporary means obviously temporary for a certain duration. Perpetual injunction means which is applicable for like forever, right? It's a permanent thing. Perpetual is a permanent injunction granted to people. Perpetual is when the rights are determined on merits of case and it is the final decree. So it is permanent injunction. That means when the case is finally decided, right? At that point of time, whatever injunction order is passed, that is called as perpetual injunction.
Yes.
Now, why do we need two different types of injunctions? Why do we need a temporary injunction?
Temporary maybe for a certain period.
But why do we need that?
Because in some cases we cannot take permanent action. Maybe later on it will be the need of the situation for that act which is now to be stopped and later to be continued.
Okay, so mostly, yeah, sometimes it may happen that it's just a temporary thing, so temporary injunction may be given. And also, what happens usually, take for example, you are going to the court, filing a case against me that I am playing loud music every single night. All right. In that case, what happens? Court will have to look into the matter, investigate, and then only court will give a decision, right? Court will hear both of us, do their investigation and all that stuff, and then only they will give a decision. But during this entire period, right, if it is taking 3 years for courts to decide, all right, if court is taking 3 years to decide the matter, does that mean that you will have to suffer for 3 long years, that I will be playing music for 3 long years because court has not asked me to stop playing loud music, and you will be suffering for 3 years waiting for court's decision and finally getting an order? No, right?
No.
What court will do is that when you go to court and present your case, court will say that, okay, fine, till the matter is decided, you stop playing loud music at night. All right. So that is a temporary injunction. That means till the matter is decided or till further order of the court, you stop playing loud music. That means it's a temporary thing. All right. Court will see at a later stage whether you are right or I am right. Maybe I'm not playing music that loud also. Maybe you are too sensitive about it, or your sleep is like very sensitive. You cannot just sleep with any sound, right? So court will decide the matter, and during this entire 3 years period, I will be stopped from playing loud music. So that will be a temporary injunction. Temporarily, I'm restricted from doing something.
Yeah.
All right. And perpetual would be that permanently. When finally after 3 years, court finds out that, okay, fine, I was in fact playing loud music, court will ask me that, okay, fine, you stop playing loud music. All right. So it will be applicable for like forever, right? Till the time I am alive, then my next generation, whoever is there, they cannot play loud music. That means it's a permanent injunction. Permanent, it's applicable. That is perpetual injunction. Is that part clear? What is temporary and perpetual?
Yes.
Yeah, so that is what basically it is. You can just remember temporary is for a certain duration of time. Perpetual will be applicable for forever. Okay, if I am parking my car in front of your house, court will decide the matter, and court will accordingly say that no, you should not park your vehicle in front of our house. That means it's permanently, it's decided from now on I cannot just go and park my vehicle in front of your house. That is permanent.
Yes.
Just remember, perpetual is permanent and another one is temporary. There are two different types of injunctions.
Yes.
Next, regarding perpetual injunction, we have provisions under chapter 7, 8, right? 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, under chapter 8 of the legislation, it mentions certain provisions regarding perpetual injunction or permanent injunction.
Okay.
First provision is perpetual injunction when granted. Again, this is also important. I have seen questions like there are hardly 5, 6 sections, right, from this part. So all the sections are important, to be frank. Just
Yes.
few are there which are, like from where they cannot just put a question directly. But otherwise, mostly these sections are important. So section 38 is talking about perpetual injunction when granted. When is it that court can grant a perpetual injunction and ask me to permanently stop doing something or to do something, right? So there are these provisions which we have subject to other provisions. Okay, subject to other provisions contained or reference to this chapter, a perpetual injunction may be granted. Whatever is in bold, that is important, okay? By reading that also you can understand. Court may grant perpetual injunction to the plaintiff to prevent the breach of an obligation existing in his favor, whether express or by implication. Obligation, what is obligation? Obligation means legal obligation that you can enforce in the court of law. Okay? If I'm just randomly making a promise that, okay, fine, I will go out for a morning walk with you every single day. That's not a legal obligation, right? Even if I'm not going out with you for a morning walk, you cannot go and file a case. That's not a legal obligation, right? But it has to be a legal obligation for breach of which you can approach the court. So perpetual injunction may be granted to the plaintiff. It may be given to you to prevent the breach of an obligation existing in your favor, right? I have an obligation towards you, right? So court will ask me to do or not to do something so that your rights are protected, right? Whether this obligation is expressed or implied, it does not matter, right? Maybe we have like a proper contract in a written form, in a registered form. That also will be binding, or it may be by way of our actions, behavior, or some other things. Impliedly also, if I have agreed to do something, that also is binding on me, right? So that is what it is. First of all, court will grant perpetual injunction. Why? To the plaintiff. Why? To prevent breach of an obligation that is existing in his favor. Whether that obligation is expressed or implied does not matter, but it has to be a legal obligation which can be enforced in the court of law, for violation of which you can go to the court, right? It cannot be just any random promise. Is that part clear?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Just explain me means through one case in detail, like.
Okay. Take for example, I'm saying I will go out with you for morning walk every single day. Tomorrow, from tomorrow only, I'm not going. You cannot go to court. Why? It's not a legal obligation, right? It's just a random promise that I made. But in case I am saying that, like I'm saying that, okay, fine, you have this company. I will be supplying you these materials. Every single month or every single week, I will be supplying that. That's a legal obligation on me. Tomorrow, I cannot just refuse to do that, right? I have some sort of an obligation. So court will ask me that because you made this promise that you will be supplying these materials to her, you should supply that, right? That will be an injunction. Or court will ask that because you made this promise, you will have to fulfill it, or you cannot just sell it to someone else, right? That's an injunction basically, that your rights should be protected, right? Whatever obligation I agreed to, whatever duties I agreed to do, I cannot just refuse it at my own wish. Is that part clear? But it has to be legal obligation. Right? If you are inviting me for dinner and I'm refusing, that's not a legal obligation. But if there is proper some sort of a, like a contract where I have agreed to provide you some kind of a service, that is binding on me. Right? That's a legal obligation. You can go to court for its enforcement. That is what they are meaning. Okay, basically perpetual injunction will be given to protect you from some kind of breach, okay, that the other person is doing, violating his obligations. As a result, you should not suffer. Court will pass an injunction order. Court will ask this person to stop violating his obligations, right? He is bound to perform that. So that is basically what obligation is. Is that part clear, or do you want some other examples? Okay. So next is, when any such obligation arises from contract, the court shall be guided by the rules and provisions contained in chapter 2. What is chapter 2 of this legislation?
Specific contract. Specific relief.
Specific relief, yes. When any such obligation arises from the contract, the court shall be guided by rules and provisions contained in chapter 2. That means, if, take for example, I agreed to sell certain materials to you for your company, at a later stage I am not doing it, court will ask me that you stop selling it to someone else, and court may ask me that you sell it to her. That's like specific performance of contract only, right?
Yes.
So court will again follow whatever rules and regulations are mentioned under chapter 2. Accordingly, court will ask me that you supply these materials to her only. So the provisions, they are not again specifying, but they are just saying that court will put a restriction on me. Then again, they will go back to same chapter 2 provisions only. Same will be applicable on me, and same, like in the same way, I will be bound to perform my things. So whatever specific relief may be applicable, that again will be applied on me.
Okay.
Is that part clear?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's not just about specific relief. Certain other reliefs are also there, right? Depending on the case, whatever relief is best suited for that particular case, right, that relief will be applied by court. So that is why they have mentioned chapter 2, and they have not specifically mentioned which type of relief, because whatever is most suited one for that particular case, that only will be applied in the situation. Okay. If you have any doubts, you can ask. Okay. Next is, when the defendant invades or threatens to invade the plaintiff's right to or enjoyment of property, the court may grant perpetual injunction in the following cases. What is invading or threat, or threat to invade someone's right?
Invade means invasion, to tell it publicly, or something like invasion of privacy. It is that way.
Yeah, invasion of privacy is what, like someone is entering in your, like private rights that you have, right? Privacy that you have. Someone is, like interfering in that. So here invasion, as in someone is interfering in your rights, right? You have a right, someone is trying to come into it and violate it. All right. So invasion basically would mean you have a right, someone is trying to enter there and violate your rights. Okay. So when the other person tries to violate your right, just simply you remember, when I am trying to violate your rights, all right? Or it may be with regard to enjoyment of a certain property or towards the property itself, court will grant perpetual injunction in the following cases. That means, if you have a right, being owner of a certain property, and I am trying to violate your rights, in that case, court can pass an injunction order, perpetual injunction. In what all cases? There are these examples mentioned. When the defendant is trustee of the property for the plaintiff, okay? What is the defendant? I am a person who is supposed to take care of your property. All right, I'm a trustee. I have a duty that I
Yes.
take care of your property, but I cannot use your property for my own benefit. You should be the ultimate beneficiary, right? If I am trying to use it for my own benefits, court may pass a perpetual injunction order. Court will ask me that you don't have this right, that you enjoy this property for your benefit. You should be using this property for her benefit. So you stop doing these things, right? That is a perpetual injunction. Is it clear?
Yes.
First one, trustee of property for the plaintiff.
Yes. Yes.
Trustee, you know, right? One person who is doing something for another person's benefit. So I'm maintaining
Yes.
your property for your benefit. So I should be doing that. I should not think about my own benefit and use it in any other manner. Where there exists no standard for ascertaining the actual damage caused or likely to be caused by the invasion. I am trying to violate your rights, but it's very difficult to determine that this is the amount of loss or harm that you may be suffering or you will be suffering. In such cases, also, court will simply say that you stop doing this. Right? We are not considering what amount of loss you will suffer, what amount of harm you will suffer. But yes, there is a likelihood that you will suffer loss. So court will simply ask me, you stop doing these things. All right.
Yes.
Again, for these things, right, you can just remember whatever is in bold, that trustee of property for the plaintiff is trying to invade no standard to ascertain actual damage that may be caused. So accordingly, you can remember. Where the invasion is such that compensation in money would not afford adequate relief. What happens is, I am trying to violate your rights over a certain property in such a way that no matter what amount of compensation is being given to you, it will not be the best sort of relief that is given to you. So court has to put a restriction on me, right? So in such cases also, it will be done. Take for example, where invasion is such that compensation in money would not afford adequate relief. What I am doing is, take for example, you are owner of a certain property. Every single day I am going to your, near your property. What I'm doing is, in front of your gate, I'm standing and I'm talking for like hours, okay? And I'm just trying to peep inside your, inside your campus. That means it's an invasion of your privacy, right? You don't want someone to keep checking what is going on inside your house or inside your campus, right? So in such cases, it's, money will not be a satisfactory relief, right? Even if court gives me an order that you pay this much amount of compensation, that's not enough, because you are not able to enjoy your property peacefully. You are not able to, enjoy your tea maybe outside the house. Outside your campus, you cannot enjoy, just because I'm continuously there looking what is going inside your house, right? In such cases also, court may pass a perpetual injunction order. Is it clear what is this point?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. When the injunction is necessary to prevent multiplicity of judicial proceedings. What is multiplicity of judicial proceedings? Or what is judicial proceedings?
Hearing where the case has been in process.
Yeah, judicial proceeding, as in it can be anything. If I'm going to court filing a case, that will be judicial proceeding. If I'm going to court to, that court passed some order for its execution, I'm going to court, whatever, right? Whatever legal help I'm taking, that will be a judicial proceeding, right? So to prevent multiplicity of judicial proceeding, that means just to avoid me going to court 10 number of times, court may pass an injunction order also.
Okay.
Okay, if take for example, I bought a property from you, I made the payment, I signed on the paper and everything, right? On paper, it got transferred to me, but you are not handing over the property. If I go to court, court would not just simply end the matter saying that, okay, fine, you sign on the paper and all of that. court will ask that you vacate the plot, you hand over possession to her, right? Court will ask that. Why? Because tomorrow again you may not hand over that property to me, right? There is a possibility that tomorrow I may again have to go to court and ask for my rights. So court will in the first instance only get everything clear that okay fine, now itself you hand over the property, I don't want you coming to court every single time. Right? So whenever court feels necessary that there is a possibility that party may come again to court asking for some kind of a relief, court will pass an injunction order as well. Is this part clear? Section 28?
Yes.
You can just go through it one more time and see if any doubts.
What happens in this where there exists no standard for ascertaining the actual damage caused or likely to be caused by the invasion?
Okay, where, which one?
B.
B, okay, where there exists no standard for ascertaining the actual damage caused or likely to be caused. See, this same example you can take that I am just standing in front of your gate for like 4 or 5 hours, continuously speaking on phone and trying to peep inside you, what is going on inside the campus. That is what court cannot just decide that this is the amount of harm that you have suffered, right? Maybe you wanted to enjoy your evening tea outside the house, right, with your family. You cannot do that because I'm continuously there peeping inside the house, right? So court just cannot decide what is the amount of harm that you have suffered. Maybe it's very difficult for you to, like come outside the house, talk to someone over phone, or maybe you have a swimming pool or a private pool that you cannot access just because I'm continuously there. It can be a lot of things where you are being affected, right? So court just cannot decide that, okay, fine, this is the amount of harm that you have suffered. So in such cases, court will simply say that you stop standing there in front of the gate, you stop doing this particular thing, because it's difficult for court to decide what is the amount of harm that you have suffered.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so this is about section 38, which is again important. Next is section 39. It talks about mandatory injunction. Now, don't get confused whether there are 2 types of injunctions or 3 types of injunctions. There are 2 types of injunctions under Specific Relief Act, temporary and perpetual. Okay, what is mandatory injunction then? Mandatory injunction is just, like when it's mandatory to pass an injunction order. All right, it's mandatory. From the name itself, it's very clear. What is mandatory injunction? It's mentioned under 39. When to prevent breach of an obligation, it is necessary to compel the performance of certain acts which the court is capable of enforcing. The court may, in its discretion, grant an injunction to prevent breach of to prevent the breach complained of, and also to compel performance of the requisite acts. Sometimes what happens, in order to ensure that your rights are not being violated, it's very necessary that court asks me to perform something or not to perform something. In such cases, court will do that. What is it? It's mandatory, or it's very much necessary that court passes an injunction order to ensure your rights are being protected. All right, if court is not passing this injunction order, there is a likelihood that your rights will be affected. So in such cases, it becomes mandatory to pass an injunction order, and accordingly, court will do that. Court will try to protect your rights and will ask me to do something. Take, for example, A wrongfully obtained. Okay, this is an example which will help you understand it. Okay. A wrongfully obtained some portion of B's land. Okay, take for example, there are two vacant plots of land, A and B. All right. A has not constructed anything over there. Okay, not even the boundary wall. And B wants to start construction. What he has done is that he constructed all these three boundary walls. While constructing this one, he decided that why not I acquire some portion from A's land, because anyways he has not constructed the house, he is not staying there, so might be he will not even come to know about it. I will try to acquire some portion of his land. All right, and he accordingly starts constructing the wall. Okay, little he has constructed. At that point of time, A comes to know that this other person, his neighbor, is trying to acquire some portion of his land. So he goes to court, and accordingly what happens is that court passes an injunction order. All right, while construction work was in progress, the other person went to court. Court may grant an injunction to stop construction. Court can say that no, you cannot acquire this property of the other person, you stop this construction. But is that enough just to say you stop the construction? Because already the wall is half constructed, right? So in such case, what happens? Court will have to pass an order that you also demolish this part that you have already constructed. All right. Injunction is that you don't construct it further, but again, you will have to demolish this other part also. Otherwise, A's right is anyways going to be violated, right? So you will have to demolish this part also. That is mandatory injunction. That it's very essential that court asks the person that you demolish this portion of the wall. Otherwise, A's right is going to be violated. So accordingly, you do that. Otherwise, A's right is not going to be protected, even though I am passing an order not to construct the wall further. Is it clear what is mandatory injunction?
Yes, yes.
From name itself, it's clear, right? It's mandatory that this order is passed. Otherwise, the other person's right will be violated. This is section 39. Whenever you have any doubts on any section, you can always come back to this document, read the examples. It's very clear to understand in that case.
Yes.
Next one is damages in lieu of or in addition to injunction. What is in lieu of?
Don't know. What is?
In lieu of?
No.
Okay. So damages, what is damages? What is the difference between damage and damages? What is the difference between damage and damages?
Damages is multiple things.
Is it? Have you studied this in torts? What is damage and damages? The differences? In torts, you must have got this, right? Damage and damages, the differences.
Yes.
So what is the difference between damage and damages?
Don't know exactly.
Okay, so damage, right? Whenever you get damage, that means some sort of a loss or harm, right? What we usually see. And damages means monetary compensation. Try to remember this. Just because of this single S, right? Its meaning becomes, its meaning changes. Damages does not mean multiple losses or multiple injuries. It means monetary compensation that you are getting for this loss. Okay, so there is difference between damage and damages. Damages is not the plural form of damage. Okay, so damages means what? Some sort of a monetary compensation that you are getting for the loss which you have suffered. Okay, so damages.
I will voluntarily give you whatever damage you have suffered.
No, you will not voluntarily give me. Take for example, I'm disturbing your sleep by playing loud music, right? Court will
Yes.
ask me that for all these years, because you were playing loud music, you pay 10 lakhs rupees to her. Along with that, there is an injunction order that you cannot play loud music anymore, right? So this amount that I'm paying to you, that is damages, that is compensation which I'm giving you.
Okay.
Okay, that is damages. In case of traffic accident and all, you would see people paying compensation to the other person. If someone dies, someone is injured, someone had to, like someone goes through some sort of injury, compensation is provided,
Yes,
right?
yes,
That is what is damages. So what is section 40? Damages in lieu of. In lieu of means in place of, right? Rather than giving this, I'm giving this, like a substitute, okay? Damages in lieu of or in addition to injunction. That means rather than passing an injunction order, damages can be given, or along with injunction, damages can be given. That means if I am going to court and saying that you should pass this injunction order, sometimes court may feel that maybe injunction is not necessary in this case, so court will rather give me compensation. Or sometimes court may feel that yes, injunction is necessary, but apart from that, you have also suffered a lot, so compensation should be provided to you.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a discretion of court, that court can decide whether to provide damages, whether to provide injunction, or whether to provide both of them.
Okay.
So I'll just give you an example. Okay, take for example, I am playing loud music at night and disturbing your sleep. Okay, but you are going to court and simply filing a case that court should pass an injunction order and ask me to stop playing loud music. Okay, you are not asking for compensation, right? You are not asking for damages from court, but court will feel that yes, injunction is necessary in this case, but you have already suffered for all these months, so why not you are, like also compensation should be provided to you. So court will ask you that you are entitled to ask for compensation as well, so you ask for that and we will give that to you, right? So it's discretion of court, court will decide. Or in some cases, take for example, like only for once there, like your neighbor, at your neighbor's place there was a function, maybe marriage. Okay, so marriage will take place only once, right? So at that point of time they played some, like they bursted crackers or something. Okay, some sort of nuisance was created, all right, by your neighbors. You went to court asking for injunction order that your neighbor should not play, like burst crackers or something. In that case, court may feel that marriage was just like once in a lifetime event, so it's anyways not going to continue anytime in future. So injunction will have no meaning. So rather than providing injunction order, it's better that they are made to pay compensation to you, right? So court will say that it's better that rather than passing an injunction order, we ask the person to pay compensation to you, right? So accordingly, court will do that. So it's discretion of court. Depending on the situation, depending on the case, court will decide whether to provide compensation or to provide injunction or both together.
Okay, yes.
Done, right? And also, right, even if you are asking for only injunction in your, like when the case is filed, court at any point of time, court may ask you that you make changes and you even insert that you want compensation also. Court has that right also. At any point of time, if court feels that you are entitled to compensation, court will give you the opportunity and you can accordingly claim for that.
Yes.
Sometimes even you will see, take for example, it happens a lot in case of traffic accidents. Okay, take for example, one person has filed a case regarding compensation that because of this accident I have suffered this loss, so I am entitled to 2 lakhs rupees compensation. All right, party is asking for 2 lakhs rupees compensation, but court feels that in this situation party should be getting more than 2 lakhs. So court will ask that no, you don't ask for 2 lakhs, you ask for 5 lakhs. Court can even do that. Okay, if court feels that this amount is not satisfactory, court can do that also. All right, so it's completely discretion of court that you can remember. Okay, so it does not matter whether court is passing injunction or not. That's not like a restriction that court cannot give compensation, monetary compensation. All right, and one more important thing here is that the dismissal of a suit to prevent the breach of an obligation existing in favor is a bar on his right to sue for damages. That means if you are going to court asking for an injunction order and court has dismissed your case saying that it do not have that much of like value or importance, matter is not enough, in that case you cannot again go and ask for damages. Why? Because obviously your matter is not having that much of strength, otherwise court will have entertained the matter in first stage only, right? So that is what it is. Simple. Is this part clear? Section 40.
Yes.
Damages in lieu of. In lieu of means in place of, right? In place of injunction, damages or monetary compensation will be given, or in addition to. Injunction also you take, damages also you take. Completely at the discretion of court.
Yes.
Next, we also need two more sections, sections 41 and 42.
42.
Yeah. So what is section 41? Injunction when granted, when refused, right? You are, refused. You are going to court asking for an injunction order. Court may refuse your, your plea. In what cases court can refuse it? There are 11 grounds that are mentioned based on which injunction will be refused by court, right? If it is coming under any of these cases, court may refuse your request for an injunction order. So what are these 11 grounds? You can just remember the grounds and you can frame your answer easily in exams. So injunction may be refused on A, B, C, D. Accordingly, these are the grounds. Restrain judicial proceedings. So I'll just go to the provisions. First of all, to restrain any person from prosecuting a judicial proceeding, right? You cannot go. Take for example, I have violated something, okay? I have violated some sort of a legislation, okay? Maybe I have committed some wrong under IPC, okay? I have committed some offense under IPC, and I am then going to court saying that court should pass an injunction order that you cannot go and file a case against me, okay? I am accused of committing the offense of kidnapping under IPC, okay? Now I am going to court and asking the court that court should pass an injunction order and restrict you from filing a case against me. All right, so that does not make any sense, right? So in that case, court will say that it is not possible, right? Injunction will not be grounded.
Okay. Means that if I am the thief, okay, I'll only go to the court and I'll pass this.
Yeah, you only will go to court and you will only request, or any other person can also go, right? Basically, you are being restricted. It can be me going to court, my friends, my family, anyone can go in my favor and ask the court that basically you are restricted from taking any sort of legal proceeding, right? It does not matter who is going to court, but you are being restricted from taking or initiating any sort of judicial proceedings.
Means any person, no matter what he has committed crime, is defendant or plaintiff, no person can be restrained.
Yeah, no person can be restrained from initiating any judicial proceeding. If you have a right to file a case, if you have a right to take any legal help, you have that right. I cannot just ask the court to restrict you or take that right from you. I don't have that right. Okay, so on that ground, court will refuse my request for injunction. To restrain any person from instituting or prosecuting any proceeding in a court not subordinate to that from which the injunction is sought. Now, I think you, yeah.
I'll just write it down. Yes, ma'am. Done. Next, second.
Yeah, yeah. So in the second one, to restrain any person from instituting or prosecuting any proceeding in a court not subordinate to that from which injunction is sought. Now, you know, right, there are different hierarchy of courts in India,
Yes.
right? So there is Supreme Court, then there are high courts, then there are all these, like sessions court, and then we have, like additional district judges court, then we have magistrate court and all that stuff. So what happens? I cannot go to the sessions court, right? I cannot go to or additional district judges court and say that this person should not file a case in, like Munsif court or any court that is coming under additional district judges court. I cannot do that, right? Basically, if you have a right to approach the Munsif court also, or court of small causes, or you have the right to approach the additional district judges court, you have that right. Wherever you want to go, you can go. I cannot put a restriction that she will not be entitled to go to all these lower level courts. She can only go to this or that, right? Whatever rights you basically have under law, you have that. I cannot take that right from you.
Yes.
Is that
Okay.
clear? So this is regarding any kind of judicial proceeding, right? I cannot put you a restriction. And here I cannot put a restriction that below this particular court, you cannot file the case. I cannot do that. If you have a right to go to these courts, you have that right. I cannot restrict you from going there. Next is to restrain any persons from applying to any legislative body. Now, we have all these Supreme Court, High Court, this, that, everything we have. That is the normal structure of court, right? In India. Again, we have other bodies that works like a court only, right? We have National Human Rights Commission. Have you heard of that? National Human Rights Commission. Women's Commission, State Human Rights Commission, Women's Commission, Child Rights Commission, then Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, National Green Tribunal, we have many other bodies, right? So these bodies also function similar to that of courts, right? They will deal with specific matters. If it's Human Rights Commission, they will only deal with human rights violation. If it's National Green Tribunal, they will only deal with environment related matters, right? But these bodies also function just like a court. So I cannot even ask the court to pass an injunction order that you don't have a right to approach National Human Rights Commission or State Human Rights Commission or something like that, right? For any legislative bodies also, I cannot say that you don't have that right. You don't have the right to approach the revenue, like collector. You don't have to have the right to approach the municipal commissioner or whatsoever it is. Right? Firstly, I cannot restrict you from filing a case or any sort of legal proceeding. Secondly, I cannot restrict you that below this code, you cannot file a case. There cannot be a restriction like that. Thirdly, regarding any other legislative bodies also, I cannot put a restriction on you.
Yes.
Next is to restrain any person from instituting or prosecuting any proceeding in a criminal matter. Now, you know, right, there are different types of crimes, civil and criminal. Right? Now, there are certain crimes which comes both under civil as well as criminal. Right? So, any example that you can give that comes under both civil and criminal?
Okay. Any case?
Any like crime or any offense that can be filed under civil or criminal? What is civil and criminal basically differences?
Civil is which is not criminal, like it can be basis of contract or anything which is not related to murder and all.
Okay, that is not related to murder and all. 1 second. All right, 1 second. There is one document that I'll share with you.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, you can see, right, a different document?
Yes.
Okay. So there are few concepts regarding like introduction. This part is removed from here. 1 second, I'll just check.
Hmm.
Okay, so this is basically the difference between civil and criminal. Okay, so what is civil? Civil law deals with basically dispute between individuals or organizations. If there is a dispute between you and me, that's civil. If there is a dispute between you and a company or two different companies, that's civil. But in case of criminal, what happens? It deals with crimes and legal punishment for. Here, what happens basically, the matter is such that it is not just affecting you and me, but the entire society at large. Okay.
Yeah.
If I am playing loud music at night, it is just affecting you or maybe your family members, right? It is not affecting entire India. But in case there is a case regarding murder of a person or rape, it affects the entire country, right? Or even the world at large, like what happened in Nirbhaya case of Delhi, right? Delhi gang rape case. Entire country came out for protest and everything. Even outside the country, people came to know about it. We all were scared and all of that, right? Basically, it was affecting the entire country or even outside the country. So those will be crimes when it is very severe, it is affecting more number of people. But in case of civil, even though there is a dispute between you and me, no one else would bother about that. Even though there is a dispute of you and your some relatives, no one else is going to bother about that, right? So those will be civil. In case of civil, we just try to minimize the harm. We would try to pay some amount of compensation, pass some injunction orders, and that's done. But in case of criminal, we would try to give punishment, maybe death penalty, maybe imprisonment, simple, rigorous, this, that, multiple things, right? We want to set an example in eyes of other people that if this sort of a crime is committed, this is going to be the consequence which you will have to face, right?
Yes.
So this is basically the difference. In case of civil, what happens? Maybe a landlord-tenant dispute. Tenant is not paying rent on time. Landlord is not happy with that. Divorce proceeding, child custody, property dispute, all of that are examples of civil. In case of criminal, theft, assault, robbery, murder, rape, all that stuff is criminal, right? So in case of criminal, it's more severe. In case of civil, it's less severe. Punishments will also differ accordingly, right? So to restrain, okay, now there are certain crimes, certain things which are crime, and there are certain things which are civil wrongs. Like murder cannot be a civil wrong, right? Rape cannot be a civil wrong. It will be criminal. Again, similarly, violation of a contract is a civil wrong. Property dispute is a civil wrong, right? That cannot be a crime.
Yes.
Right? But there are some, like some offenses or some wrongs which are both civil and criminal.
Yes.
All right. That means it depends on the victim whether he wants to file a civil proceeding or he wants to file a criminal proceeding. All right. One example will be defamation. Right? If you are publishing some sort of defamatory statement about me, I can either go for civil proceedings or I can file a criminal case against you.
Okay, but ma'am, I have doubt. How can it come in criminal? Okay, if you put it in newspaper and also it will come under criminal, right?
It basically depends on me how I want to proceed with it. For contempt of court, it's depending on how the contempt is done. It depends whether it's civil or criminal. But for defamation, it is like I have both the option. I can decide where I want to go.
Okay, but if it is to be criminal, then what on what grounds can it be criminal for
because
defamation?
it is mentioned under IPC. It's a crime under IPC. Section 499,
Acha.
500. It's a crime under IPC.
Okay. Ha.
Yeah. So that is the reason. So now what is next provision? To restrain any person from instituting or prosecuting any proceeding in a criminal matter. That means if I have committed defamation, right? The offense of defamation against you, you have the right to decide whether you want to go for a civil proceeding or a criminal proceeding. I cannot go to court and say that she should not be allowed to file a criminal case against me because that will be, like that will be like a more bad thing for me. So I cannot go to court and say that you should be restricted from filing a criminal proceeding against me. It depends on you. You will decide that. Court will not put any such restrictions.
Yes.
Right? So in cases where it's both civil and criminal, party has the right to decide. I cannot go to court and say that you stop her from filing a criminal case. I cannot do that. All right?
Okay. Yes.
To prevent the breach of a contract, the performance of which would not be specifically enforceable. That means there are some contracts where specific performance is not possible, right? Take, for example, I have signed a contract to sing for you for 5 days. Court will not enforce it, saying it involves personal qualification. Right? If court is saying that it cannot be specifically enforced, you cannot ask the court to pass an injunction order that I should be restricted from violating the contract. Right? Like indirectly you are trying to twist the matter and you are trying to obtain specific performance only, right? So that is not allowed. If specific performance is not allowed, you cannot go to court and say that she should be restricted from violating this contract, because that would again mean specific enforcement of contract only, right? Is it clear? It's just like trying.
Yeah. I'll just read once.
Yeah.
Okay, means in this it is like if someone is doing breach of contract and the same person will go to court and tell them to restrain her from filing a case against me for breach of contract.
Take for example, there is a contract between you and me. I promised to sing for you for 5 days continuously. Later on, I said that I cannot sing for you. You are going to court and asking for specific performance. Court refused. That specific performance cannot be given. Then you are again going to court and saying that court should pass an injunction order that I do not violate the contract. Right? Just you are twisting your words, but you are again asking for the same thing, right? So that also is not possible. That court cannot just say that you do not breach this contract, because that would again mean specific performance only. Next is to prevent on the ground of nuisance an act of which it is not reasonably clear that it will be nuisance. To prevent on the ground of nuisance. So there can be something where it's not very clear whether it's nuisance or not.
Okay.
If I'm playing loud music at night, maybe it's easy for court to decide that it's nuisance. But if only for like 2-3 minutes in a day, I am using some sort of manual grinder or something, I am creating some sort of vibration and disturbing you, it's difficult for court to say whether it's nuisance or not, because it's just for a few minutes, right? So you can try to ignore that just because it's for only few minutes. So you can try to ignore that. So it's difficult for court to decide whether it's nuisance or not. Right? In such cases also, it may be difficult for the court to pass an injunction order because it's not very clear whether it amounts to nuisance or not. So there also court would not pass an injunction order. Is it clear? So this example is very clear, that will give you an understanding. Take for example, I bought a house just next to the main road, thinking that it will be very much convenient for me to commute from there to any other place. All right. Later on, I'm going to court and complaining that this is a very busy road. They are, like there are vehicles throughout day, night, and I cannot sleep. I cannot stay peacefully there. So in this case, court understands that I'm being disturbed, but obviously court cannot ask that, like you don't use your vehicles at night, or you should not use this road or something, right? So it's difficult for court to say whether it's nuisance or not. So their court cannot ask that you should not use this road at night because she is sleeping.
Yes.
Right? Basically, that is what it is. Where it's not very clear whether it amounts to nuisance or not. Prevent continuing breach in which plaintiff has accepted something reluctantly, but without protest. That means some sort of a continuing breach that I am committing, that a person is committing, but I have given acceptance to it. Okay. So this is the example which you can try to understand. Take for example, I am owner of a certain property. All right. What happens is people are using my property. Okay. They are passing inside my property. Okay. They are using it like a walkway to reach to other end of the road because it's a shortcut. All right. They are using it for like 2-3 years. I'm not protesting. I'm not saying anything. They are using it, using it and using it. After 3 years, government decided to construct some roads over there, and they started the construction work also. I did not complain about it. Government constructed a road inside my private plot. I did not complain about it. All right. After 3 years, I am going to court and saying that this was my private plot. How come government constructed a road? So in that case, court would not pass an injunction order. Court will say that why did you not come at an earlier stage? Why did you not protest at an earlier stage? So court will not pass an injunction order restricting those people from using that particular road.
Will court compensate you then?
No, it depends on the time limit again. So there is a time limit for that. If after 12 years or, like after 13, 14 years, I'm going, court would not even compensate because that limitation period is already over. So basically there is a limitation to file a case for every single matter. You cannot just approach at any point of time and ask for your rights. There is a limitation with regard to time. Okay, so if you are going to court after 13, 14 years and complaining about it, court would not entertain the matter. You will not get any compensation also. Okay. Okay, so next one is when equally and relief can be available to obtain any usual mode of proceeding acceptable breach of trust. Okay, when equally efficacious relief can certainly be obtained by any other usual mode of proceeding except in case of breach of trust. What happens is sometimes you are entitled to some other kind of relief, right? So when you have some other reliefs, you go for that. You don't ask for injunction. That is what this point is. Okay. Take for example, I am dealing with electronic items. I am selling some washing machines, TV, etc. Okay. I sold you a washing machine, and there was clearly mentioned that if there is any defect or anything, you can always come back within 2 months. We will replace the product. All right, I have clearly mentioned that I will replace the product within 2 months if you are coming. Okay, so after 2 days of buying the product, you came to know that it's defective. And you approach the court saying that court should pass an injunction order restricting me from continuing that business because I was selling defective product. Okay, in that case, court will say that why are you coming for an injunction order when she is already agreeing to replace the washing machine? Why don't you opt for that thing, right? You should go and replace the product rather than asking for injunction order. So that is what this is, right? Equally efficient or equally effective relief you have, right? It's better that you replace the product. Why don't you replace the product? Why are you coming for injunction?
Yeah, okay, okay.
Okay, is it clear?
Yes, yes, yes.
So equally
Just a
efficacious
minute.
is
And
relief. Yeah.
yes, just a minute. Yes, ma'am, done.
Yeah. Next one is if it would impede or delay the progress or acha. So there are certain things that is called as infrastructure project of government. Okay, infrastructure
Mm-hmm.
project of government. Okay, so if it is coming under those, so there is basically a schedule to this legislation. If you see the Barrett last page, right, there is a schedule mentioned where there are 5 categories. Okay, 5 categories of things that government may do, which are called as infrastructure project. Maybe it's for education, for construction of road, then bridge, flyover, etc. There are few categories. You can read that yourself. So if it is coming under any of those infrastructure projects, then also court would not can pass an injunction order. Okay.
Huh.
Take for example, their government wants to construct a road or a flyover, for that matter, they have contracted with me.
Huh.
Okay, then there were certain violations. I approach the court and say that there are some sort of violations going on. Court should pass an injunction order and put a restriction on construction of this flyover or road.
Hmm.
Okay, so court will not do that. Why? Because if court is putting a restriction, deciding the matter for 5 years and all that stuff, it will delay that construction work of government, right? So when this any sort of work or contract is falling under construction projects mentioned under that first schedule of this legislation, court would say that we are not passing an injunction order because it will delay this construction work that government has started.
Yes.
Okay, court may provide me compensation, court may give me any other relief, but not injunction.
Okay, okay.
Okay, you can, yeah.
So, means previous one which we were discussing regarding this only, what was that?
This one or what?
Previously, same we discussed, na, before one key. You said that it is the time limit for compensation.
That is for general, okay? If you are owner of a property and I have acquired your property, you have a right to file a case within 12 years. That is like a legislation we have, Limitation Act. Under that, you have limitation for every single thing, okay? So if I'm acquiring your property, you have a right to file a case for, like within 12 years. That is what it is. Just that example I just gave, random example I gave. That is not like you are, yeah, like their construction work was completed. People started using the road also. Then you are going to court and filing a case, right? That's a different
Okay,
thing.
so
Yeah.
So it may be constructed by government body or any private person, doesn't matter. That is the same thing.
Yeah, in the previous one, it does not matter who is doing it, but someone is infringing your rights. You were not complaining when you should have complained. After many years, you are going to complain. That will not be entertained.
Okay.
Okay.
And this is specifically related to government.
This is specifically related to government only.
Oh.
In fact, these, like what all will fall under it, that is also specified. Any and everything will not fall under it. You can refer to the first schedule yourself for this. Okay. These are the categories. Infrastructure project regarding transport, energy, communication, water and sanitation, social and commercial infrastructure. These are the categories for which they can do. Okay, and under these also there are subcategories. For transport, it may be construction of roads, bridges, ports, airports, railway track, many other things, right? So if it is falling under any of these, court will not pass an injunction order. And also this list is not like the complete list. If at any point of time government feels some other things need to be added here, they can add that also.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, you can refer first schedule, like the towards last page of the BEREC, when all the sections are over, there you will get this list also.
Okay.
So regarding government projects, right, infrastructure project, there will be no injunction order. Then when the conduct of the plaintiff or his agents has been such as to disentitle him to be the assistance of the court. The person complaining of the person complaining is only on fault. So if you are someone who is going to court and asking for an injunction order, but you are only doing something wrong, right? In that case also, court will not pass an injunction order. Take for example, A booked a computer by paying 30,000 rupees. Okay. Take for example, I am dealing with electronic items. I have a computer with me. Okay, you came to me, that computer was worth 40,000. You came to me, gave me 30,000 rupees and said that I will be paying remaining remaining 10,000 rupees in 2-3 days and I'll buy the computer. Okay, you just keep the computer with me. But what happens? You are not coming to me, you are not paying the money, you are not taking the computer, you are not doing anything. Okay, time was over. I was like I was reminding you, I sent notice, this, that, but you did not do anything. All right. But what happens? So I told you that if you do not pay, I'll sell the computer to someone else also, but you did not reply. Rather than paying or responding to my letters, right? Rather than paying that 10,000, taking the laptop or replying to my things, what you are doing is that you are going to court and you are asking that court should pass an injunction order that I should not sell that laptop to anyone. All right.
Okay.
So in that case, court will not pass the injunction order. Why? Because you are the one who is on fault, right? You told that you will be buying the laptop within 2-3 days, but you are not buying it. Rather, you are going to court and saying that I should be restricted from selling it to anyone else. Right? So court will say that you are the person who is on fault. So this injunction order will not be granted. If you are interested, you buy the laptop and go. Right? Or reply to the notices that is being sent to you. So that is another case where injunction will not be granted. Next one is when the plaintiff has no personal interest in the matter. That means you cannot simply go and ask for injunction when you are not even related to the matter, right? So someone else's right is being violated, that person is not complaining, you should not like bother yourself with that. You should not go to court and ask for an injunction order. Is it clear? So you are nowhere related to it, so you mind your own business, you don't go to court and waste court's time basically, right? So in that case also court would not grant an injunction order. So these are the like grounds or categories where, so you can just remember these points and you will be able to explain it yourself. Even though it's a 10-mark question, you should be able to answer that, right?
Yes.
And always you can read these examples that are mentioned in blue color.
It will help. Yes.
Yeah, it will help. Okay, so this is the last provision which we have, injunction to perform negative agreement. Okay, now what happens?
We are going to get the 36 pages booklet. So how do we divide it? Means for 10 marks answer, how many pages we are supposed to write like
36 pages booklet, as in you cannot ask for extra pages, or what is it?
No, we cannot ask for extra pages. It's just 36, that's it.
Okay, it's 36, all right. So you have 10 marks and 5 marks questions.
10 marks and 6 marks.
Okay, 10 marks question 5, 6 marks question 6. Is it?
No. 6 marks also 5 and 10 marks also 5.
Okay, 5 and 5. Okay.
And then later on we have some case studies.
Okay, so that is for how many marks?
That is for 10 marks.
So how many questions of 10 marks?
5.
5 questions.
Hmm.
And 5 questions of 6 marks.
Yes.
Okay, I'll tell you that later. Okay, I'll just do some calculations
Yes.
and tell you.
You can also, yes, yes. You can also refer the one I've sent you for 80 mark question paper, no?
Okay, so total 80 marks question paper, 10 marks questions 5 and 6 marks questions 5
Hmm.
and 36 pages booklet.
Hmm.
Okay, I'll tell you later. Okay, I'll just count it and tell you. Okay, so next one is injunction to perform negative agreement. So there can be an agreement where it involves affirmative agreement as well as negative agreement. Affirmative means to do something. I promise you to supply some materials to you. That is an affirmative agreement, right? I have agreed to do something. Okay? And it also involves some negative agreement. That means I have also agreed that apart from you, I am not going to sell these materials to anyone. That means not to do something also I have made a promise, right? So this contract or agreement which we have, it involves affirmative agreement as well as negative agreement. I have agreed to do something and I have at the same time agreed not to do certain things. It's a combination of both. Okay, now because of situation or circumstances, court is unable to compel specific performance of affirmative agreement. Maybe it involves personal qualification. I have agreed to sing for you for 5 days and at the same time I have also agreed that I will not book any other appointments for these 5 days duration.
Yes.
Right, so it involves affirmative as well as negative actions. Now court is not able to ask for specific performance of affirmative agreement because it involves personal qualification, right? Court just cannot compel me to sing for you because it involves personal qualification. But that does not restrict the court from granting an injunction for performance of negative obligation. That means court cannot ask me that you sing for her for 5 days. But court can ask me that you cannot sing for anyone else for these 5 days. If you don't want to sing for her, you stay at your house, you do nothing. Right, that example which we take for movie, right, that Deepika Padukone agreed to act on a movie, later on she refused. So it's fine, you don't act for this movie, but you cannot act for any other movie for this given period of time. Right, so in a way the person is compelled to perform the action. So person would say that okay fine, it's better that I act for this movie also rather than just sitting at home doing nothing. Right, so that is what it is. So even if the court is not able to ask the person to perform this affirmative action, it does not restrict the court from passing an order that you perform this negative agreement. Whatever you promised not to do, you don't do that. Okay, if plaintiff is not guilty of performing his part of contract. So if I am not guilty at my point, court can ask that you don't sing for anyone else also. That is what basically this provision is. You can again remember that movie example only, that Deepika Padukone agreed not to act in any other movie. The same. Is this part clear? Yes, yes. Affirmative and negative. So affirmative as in doing something, negative is not doing something. Both the things are combined in one single agreement. Court cannot ask me to do something. Court cannot ask me to sing for you. But court can definitely ask me that you cannot sing for anyone else for this given 5 days time. Right, so that is what it is. Okay, so we have completed Specific Relief Act. Okay, whatever provisions we had. So these some objective type questions were there. These are basically important for judiciary people. So you don't need to read this because you don't have objective type questions, but you can always refer these charts and all to remember the provisions better, right? Yeah, because rather than referring to the barrect, it just explains the matter in a simple way. Okay. All right, so now we are in a position to see the question paper. Okay, so it is, what is injunction? Question mark is 5, but you always prepare for 10 mark. Okay, whatever the question is. So what is injunction? I have mentioned study material. That means in study material, you can refer, it's very clearly written. All right. So in study material, it's very nicely written regarding injunction also. What is injunction? This, okay. You can also mention that it's a type of preventive relief mentioned under part 3 of the Specific Relief Act and all that stuff. Then what is injunction? Injunction is judicial process whereby a party in an order to refrain another from doing something and all that stuff. Then injunction has 3 characteristic features that also you can just read. Preventive relief is granted at discretion of court, why it is granted, when it is granted, right? So accordingly, you can just read the study material and from there you can refer this question.
Yes.
Then we have write a short note on preventive relief provided under the Act. Same question. Specific performance. Again, you can refer the study material. What is specific performance? See, when they are clearly asking, mention the situations when specific relief can be granted. There you need to be specific and you should only mention when specific relief can be granted. But if it's a general question, they are just saying that, okay, fine, write a short note on specific relief. There they are not restricting you to anything, right? Whatever you know from section, like this part 2 of the Act, sections 9 to 16, 21, 24, whatever you remember, you can accordingly frame the answer and write for yourself, right? Because they have not clearly mentioned what all you should write for this thing. So accordingly, you frame the answer. What is meant by specific performance? So there you need to explain that specific performance is a type of specific relief mentioned under part 2 of the Specific Relief Act. The same introduction you can again give. Then you can mention who can claim it, right? So accordingly, you can mention the section, group of persons who can ask for it and all that stuff you can write. Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay, next is what are the cases in which the court can grant perpetual injunction? Again, it's section 38. Whatever is mentioned, you can accordingly frame. Write a short note on temporary injunction. Again, sections 36, 37, you can refer. Briefly explain the contracts which cannot be specifically enforced. We saw, right? That part you can refer. What are the principles the court should consider while granting temporary injunction? Again, sections 36, 37, you can write. Short note on permanent injunction. Under what circumstances court can grant specific performance of contract? Like basically same questions they are asking, right? What is injunction? Write a short note. Contracts which can be specifically enforced, against sections 10 to 13. Examine the circumstances in which court cannot grant injunction, 41, like government project and all that stuff, what we saw, right? Explain the kinds of injunctions as preventive relief. Whatever you know for injunction, you can write everything. What are preventive reliefs? Briefly explain different types of injunctions. Again, study material is a good option to refer. Discuss different kinds of injunctions, study material you can refer. Short note, same questions, right? Same questions are being repeated. Short note on specific relief, this, that. Right? So same only, because anyways part is limited, right? Few sections are there, so same thing they are being repeating. Okay. Now when you are writing the answer, right, it's very also important how you are presenting the answer, right? So you can just mention that, okay, fine, question number this answered. So you can properly write an introduction. You can maybe underline it also. Under that, you can in clean, clear handwriting, you can write then introduction, nice introduction. Then whatever the question is, right? If they are asking for specific relief also, you can put subheadings, right? What is specific relief? Who can ask for it? This, that, whatever you want to write, you write that. And lastly, you write a conclusion, right? For conclusion also, you give a heading, conclusion, you accordingly conclude the answer, right? When you write it in a proper format for all the answers, it just gives a good impression, right? Rather than just starting the answer from anywhere and just ending it anywhere, right? You should properly start it, properly end it with whatever they have asked accordingly, you right?
And And what are the case laws? Means we will have to put case laws, or we can use illustrations also.
In case of specific relief act, we don't have that much, like for contracts, case laws are very much important, but for specific relief act, case laws are not that important. One or two I have mentioned. Yeah, one or two I
Huh.
have mentioned there, but yeah, for specific relief act, don't like waste your efforts. Rather than that, you try to remember more cases from contracts, because in question papers also I have not seen any question from specific relief act asking explain with the help of cases. But for contracts, I have
Yeah.
seen many cases where they are asking explain consideration with the help of relevant cases.
Yes.
Right? So whatever amount of cases you can remember, try to use those effort for contracts or for IPC. Right? For
Yes.
specific relief act, sections are fine.
Yes, and illustrations.
Illustrations also, yeah, that should be fine
Oh,
for you. Okay, so
okay.
1 second, I'll just try to calculate how much you can write for it. Okay, so it's a 36 pages booklet and you have 80 marks.
Hmm.
So try to consider, like, like for 1 mark, you should write less than 1 page. Okay, it should be like,
Huh.
okay, so if this is 1 page, right, 45% of this page, that means less than half of this page. Take for example, it's 1 page, less than half of the part you should fill for 1 mark. All right, so that means if it's a 6 mark question, how much you should write? 1, 2, yes, 3 pages you should write, right? Accordingly, you can calculate. Okay, I'll just try to calculate. So whenever you have a doubt, right, that this is the total mark, how much should I write because I have limited number of pages? What you do is, you have 36 pages, right? So 36 divided by total mark is 80, right? So 36 divided by 80, you get the answer 0.45. That means less than half of the page you should be filling for 1 mark. Okay. If it's a 6 mark question, you write 3 pages. If it's a 10 mark question, accordingly you do the calculations and you do it. Okay. And once you are done, because it's 45, right? 0.45, not 50. And you said that, okay, fine, 3 pages I'll write. That means you are writing a little more than it, right? So you just calculate again, 1 second. So it's if 10 mark question 6. For 10 mark, how much you will write? How many pages? 5 pages.
Yes, fine.
So accordingly, you do the calculations. Might be it will go to some 37, 38 pages also, because you are writing just 0.5 extra for every single mark, right? So accordingly, you do the calculations. You understood, right?
Yes, sure.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
I understood.
Yeah. So accordingly, you get that thing done. Okay, so any doubts on this part, specific relief? Because that much is
No.
what is covered.
Yes, today I'll try writing all the subtopics in keywords. Yeah, and then I'll let you know.
Yeah. Also try to frame one conclusion for each, okay? So that you don't have any hurry at the time of exam, right? You know what will be asked in the exam basically, right? Obviously, it will be something from, like specific performance of contract. So you can prepare one common conclusion as well, mentioning whether specific relief is good or not, whether specific performance is good or not in your opinion. So accordingly, you can just frame one conclusion of 2-3 lines also that will fit any question of specific performance. Similarly, you can also write one conclusion for injunctions as well, giving your opinion whether it's good or bad, right? You should basically conclude the answer, writing about all the provisions, sections, and everything. What you conclude, whether it's good, bad, what do you think, right? You should try to give your opinion in 1 or 2 lines. So accordingly, you try to frame one conclusion for whatever topics we have mentioned, right? For that, you can one common conclusion basically.
Yes. Ma'am, if see, like for specific relief act, I'll remember now sections. But in case of any other answer, I don't remember the sections, and I just simply keep writing without mentioning the proper sections, but I give case laws and illustrations. So how much will it affect?
Uh, See, it again, as I told you yesterday, right? It completely depends on your ability to remember. Some people are very good at remembering numbers. They can remember sections very well. Some people are very good at remembering names or like stories, so they can remember case laws very easily. So you don't bother yourself with that, like how much it will affect or not affect or all that stuff. Whatever you are good at, you concentrate on that. If you can remember cases well, that's good. You go for cases, explain the matter, try to remember very minimum sections, like the most important ones, and accordingly you do.
Okay.
So what do you think? You are good at remembering numbers, cases, what is it?
I can remember only few numbers, but story, like you said, that I can remember.
All right, so then in that case, you don't need to remember each and every section. Rather than that, you remember that, okay, fine, specific relief act is divided into 3 different parts. Part 2 is talking about specific relief. Part 3 is talking about preventive relief injunction. There you just, like even though you don't know that, okay, fine, section 9 is talking about this, section 10 is talking about this, you can in general write that section. Part 2 is talking about specific relief. There we have specific performance as a thing. Okay, or you can remember that, okay, friend, from sections 9 to this section, it's specific performance of contract. Inside every section, you need not remember from which to what section it's specific performance. That also you can remember. Okay, so that will simplify the thing, and also you will be able to write some sections, right? You can at least mention from this to this section, it talks about specific performance of contract. That again is a good thing only, not a bad thing.
Yes.
Right? So you don't need to bother yourself with those things, but just, whatever you are writing, other stuff should be correct. That is also enough.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So fine, then you go through the document. If you have any doubts on specific relief or anything, you can let me know that, okay?
Yes.
So you want this document, the questions?
Yes, I wanted, yes.
Okay, sure. Then so I'll share this. So here only you can prepare common 2-3 conclusions for the topics, and accordingly you can prepare, okay?
Yes.
Yeah. So have you started preparing for specific relief act?
Yes.
Okay. Sure then. Okay, because it's fresh, right? Yesterday we discussed, today we discussed. Yeah, if you try to study, it will be easier for you to remember also.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so fine then. If you have any doubts or anything, you can tell me, okay?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Sure.
yeah. Sure, then we'll
Thank
end
you.
the class here. Yeah. Thank you.